So welcome to the latest episode of Flamingo's Apartment Rebels podcast. So I just messed up this name very embarrassingly. So excited to have Daniel Berlin on the podcast.
Excited to be here.
Yeah. So really interesting what you all are doing. So Daniel is the founder and CEO of Snappt, and what they do is fraud detection for the industry, which is something that comes up a lot. If I spend a lot of time talking to property managers, spending time in the same places where they hang out online. And something that comes up a lot is prospects submitting fake documents in order to get an apartment. So it's a real problem in the industry, and you all are solving that. So really excited to have you on. Thanks. To learn a lot more about what you all do and exactly how you do it.
Sure.
And what some of the successes have looked like for companies that you have worked with. So welcome.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what got you into the industry to start with?
Yeah. So my background is in the property management space. So I own and manage my own
Berlin
portfolio.
Properties.
That's right. Yeah. So Berlin Properties. So my own portfolio of rental properties in the Los Angeles area. And then my co-founder at Snappt, Noah Goldman, he has his own property management, ownership and management group as well. And so Noah and I, we've been friends since our early 20s.
Yeah.
So, due to our, friendship and being in the same industry and kind of dealing with the same problems, we would constantly, talk about issues that we were seeing in our portfolios. Hey, I found these new laminate floors. Hey, this tenant brought this sort of situation. We're constantly going back and forth. And one of the things that we kept hitting on over and over was our frustration with applicants submitting fake financial documents. So fake bank statements, fake pay stubs when applying to our vacant units. So
not to give people ideas, but how does someone get a fake bank statement or fake whatever?
Yeah. So there's really, two different ways. So you can either
get ideas from this. If you were going to fake that,
email me, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
No, it's really one of two ways. You're either taking an existing document, so an existing real document. So you might go onto your online banking and download a document, or you're going to get, an existing, payroll statement or whatnot from your online payroll and download it. Use some photo editing software, some PDF editors, things like that. Change the names, move some numbers around.
Yeah.
So that's how they're doing it with real documents. Or the other way just if you Google fake bank statement or Google fake pay stub, you'll find hundreds and hundreds of pages.
Wow. So
if you look it up on absolutely, there's a whole economy out there. If you look it up on Reddit, fake bank statement, fake pay stub, people will give you the how-to of how to do it. And there are great things about technology, marching forward, and it's made our lives easier in many other ways. And, there are some maybe not so great things about it, and being able to falsify what we call, pixel perfect documents is incredibly easy now.
Wow. So now, how big of a problem is this for a property manager? I know you mentioned that part of how you came about this was you were solving a problem for yourself. So for the majority of property managers, how big of a problem is this?
Yeah. So, to give you some national data. So for the moment, we have just over 300,000 units that are using us nationwide. We're in 30 plus states at the moment, and of course, we're growing rapidly. And each month we're seeing 20,000 ish applicants. And last month we detected that 14% submitted fake financial documents. So that's approximately 1 out of 7. And through our company's history, so we went live July of 2019. Since then, we've run about 100,000 applicants. And to date, we're averaging 12%. So approximately 1 out of 8 each month.
What are the typical reasons why someone might fake a document? Because for me, when I think about it is, if I am applying for an apartment, and I'm not qualified to live there because of income or something else, I would not want to apply. I wouldn't want to live there because if I can't afford to live there, that's going to lead to an eviction, which is expensive both for the property and for me as a resident. So why would someone want to fake those types of documents?
Yeah. Look, it's a good question. We're certainly on the data end. So we're just, receiving documents and determining their authenticity. We're not necessarily at the beginning of the story, which is someone's motivation. So, anecdotally, look, I think if we think about some of the communities that are built around the country, they're beautiful and they're designed for someone to have an emotional connection with the space. They're designed to make you to feel aspirational, to want to live there, to think about the life that you're going to have and the people you're going to meet, how you're going to feel about yourself. And so, I think it makes sense. We also have a society that's kind of based on, overstretching, and overreaching. So I think, I think people are motivated, for understandable reasons to want to live in, a really nice place. And unfortunately, they aren't always as, financially, conservative as maybe, we would want them to be as property owners.
So then what are some of the issues that come up when a resident moves into an apartment that they are not able to afford, or that when they get through like that fake documentation, like what typically ends up happening?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, the worst case scenario is an eviction, which, is obviously a pretty terrible experience for everybody involved, right? Property owners are going to, spending all their time, going to the courts and kind of dealing with that process. Of course, there's a tremendous amount of out-of-pocket expense, but, again, for the resident, this is a very traumatic experience that's happening in your life. You're literally having, you're being kicked out of your home. And so, what we're trying to do is, try to make sure that as much as we can, of course, we're only solving, one piece of the puzzle, but as much as that we can at least, ensure that the residents that are going in are able to pay rent. And of course, that only benefits the property and just the community, in general.
Yeah. Now, for the thing I'm most interested in is like, what is the underlying technology? Like, how are you all able to actually detect a fake case from something else? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So, basically what we do is we analyze both the visual capacity of the document and the data end. So on the visual end, we're looking at, the individual pixels on the screen, the compression ratio, the color ratio, the physical alignment of the document and how it compares to our massive database of that same document type. So that's the visual end. And then also, we're analyzing the back end of the document. So the individual lines of code that are written to create these documents, we're overlaying our fraud detection over the front end and the back end. And by doing that, that's what allows us to determine the authenticity. We're in a very advantageous position that each financial institution's documents have their own, digital fingerprint, if you will. And each one has its own, very specific idiosyncrasies. And so that's what we've tuned our system to do and our algorithms to do is to detect.
That mean that you guys have basically gone out to all like the major financial institutions to see what their documents look like and then use your system to learn exactly what's the look.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
What would be some of those like financial systems that you guys have, I'll say studied?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the individual documents that come from every banking institution in the United States, as well as every payroll institution in the United States. So, there's that component. And then once you start to see, a tremendous volume of documents, you also then start to see that there are elements in, regardless of what kind of document, there are elements that if present, they are, obvious markers that this document has been edited or was never real to begin with.
Wow. So then how does training the system actually happen? So is it just like just processing one document after another?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Look, it's a painstaking process. It takes a tremendous amount of volume of information. It requires very, very specialized knowledge that really only comes with a vast amount of data, where, you get to, as our data scientists would say, a statistically significant, data set.
Yeah.
Where that's when these patterns, of what makes a document authentic and what makes it inauthentic really start to ring true.
So then what's the process from someone applying and submitting those documents to you all receiving it? What does that look like? Are you integrated with the majority of CRMs?
Right.
How do those documents get to you all? And then how do you get back to the property that is fake, this is not fake?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the moment, we're integrated with the RD. We just rolled that out. We're working on, integrations with the other major property management software, as we speak. But that being said, we've got over 1,200 communities that are using our platform alongside the application process and the software that they're, currently using. So basically, how our end works is essentially we don't touch the application process. We leave that process completely alone. And essentially once the applicant finishes their application, they receive an email. And in that email, it says, thank you so much for applying. As we discussed previously, there's one more step, which is not falsifying, validating your financial documents. Yeah. Please click on the following link and upload your documents. So the applicant clicks on that link, brings them to our page. They then put in their first name, last name, email address, unit they're applying to, and then they upload their financial documents. Those then immediately run through our system. And we then return the documents in a report back to our platform. So we notify the teams that the report is ready for them to view. And for those customers that are with Yardi that we've integrated with, we then return that report back into Yardi. But regardless of the system that you're on or whatnot, based on our security and technology that we've built, the documents need to be uploaded within our platform.
Then what level of accuracy have you guys seen? Like what's do you see a lot of false positives or not really?
Yeah, it's a great question. And of course, like with any business, there's it's easy to be tempted to scale, and maybe not to scale with true accuracy, regardless of what you're doing. But obviously with us, it's probably even more pertinent. So, on our data, so like I said, we've scanned over 100,000 applicants. That's comprised of over 300,000 individual financial documents. And our accuracy rate to date is 99.998%.
Wow.
So, look, like mistakes have been made. Mistakes will continue to be made, as, platforms and whatnot change. And, there's just an obvious error rate. But it's something that we, take incredible pride in, and we work incredibly hard to make sure that accuracy level is to, an incredibly high degree, which is what we think the industry deserves.
So then Snappt, for companies, how do they typically go about detecting fraud? Like how will they test it out prior to you guys coming in it?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're not replacing any other systems. We're essentially replacing the human eye, and that of the leasing staff. Prior to us, people are staring very closely at documents. They're referencing a different document from the same company. There's obviously, the other way of doing it is trying to, call the employer or, do some Google searching or, all of that. And
which all sorts of things I've heard from different property management groups where they're like, oh, I think this looked kind of fake to me. And I Googled it.
Exactly.
The company. Right. I found that it was. And I can't imagine how much time and effort that takes.
It's incredibly time intensive. I think the other piece that they're doing is they're trying to look through the map on the actual document and in essence, becoming like forensic accountants. But the issue then still lies, like once you believe that you have identified a fake document, how do you know? And what is your evidence? And, there is an argument to be made that there's, a potential claim that a resident can make, which is saying, hey, you're looking into my documents or you're accusing me of XYZ because of whatever scenario. And the nice thing is that for, at least what we see is both ends is that, we kind of take that process off the leasing team. They no longer have that anxiety.
It's like, oh, you got to blame.
Exactly. Yeah. By the way, that's exactly right. They say, hey, look, I don't know. The computer says it, deal with them. And, of course we have a dispute resolution process that if an applicant, feels that we have, incorrectly scored their document, we have a process for them to essentially reach out to us and we work to rectify it. I think I assumed, I was wrong in thinking that this would be, a huge part of our business, that, a huge percentage of applicants would dispute our rulings. And look, I'm really happy to report that we've only found that 0.4% of applicants ever dispute our rulings.
Oh, wow.
So the vast majority,
I'm like, oh, you cut me.
They take off.
Yeah. Wow. So that's really fascinating.
Thank you.
So in terms of the documents you all scan, is it primarily pay stubs or what else is included in your fraud detection system?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. So we focus specifically on bank statements and pay stubs.
Okay.
So, as an example of documents that are regularly collected at properties that we do not validate, one of those would be tax documents.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the issue with the tax document is anybody that has TurboTax can create a tax document. That doesn't mean they're necessarily going to send it to the IRS or anything like that. So, we looked into it, and unfortunately we could just tell you like, yes, this is a tax document, but we can't tell you whether or not it's real or not. We also can't validate offer letters. And the reason why we can't validate offer letters is because they're unverifiable, essentially. Yeah. We could tell you, hey, this is created on Microsoft Word or this program, and it was written by so-and-so. What value does that really give?
Yeah.
And again,
my last offer letter I sent to one of our customer success managers was a text message.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So that is a really cool process. And I love companies that go out and find ways to really save time for the on-site teams and really drive automation, but things that frankly, they shouldn't be spending time doing.
I totally agree.
Someone shouldn't be reviewing things stuff to figure out if it's valid or not. And they're calling an employer to see if it's not, if they have a system.
Exactly. Yeah, especially when it can be done, extremely quickly.
Yeah. The one thing I really like, that I mentioned earlier, you all have on your website is the stats from different states that shows the level of fraud or the fraud on each state.
Right.
How do you guys come up with that data? Is it from your own data or is it general data?
Yeah. So that's our own data. Each month we send out a monthly report to our customers, letting them know, of course, what the national fraud rate is and then what the fraud rate is per state. Because that's obviously something that people are, very interested in. So I think, that was just kind of due to a repeating question we were getting. Well, okay, sure. If you're saying it's 12% in, the cross country, but what is it in Alabama? What is it in Atlanta? What is it Nevada?
Yeah.
And so it was just the easier way for customers to be able to, answer those questions on their own, on our website.
And I can't remember because this was 2 days ago, but I know that, there was some states that really stood out because they had either really high fraud rates, or much lower fraud rates than that, average 12 to 14%.
That's right.
So do you all know what might be some of the mitigating factors for why one state might just have a much, much higher rate of fraud than another state?
Look, I think the major outlier when it comes to what we do is Georgia. Consistently, Georgia is well into the low 20%.
Really?
So, which is very much on the high end. I have no idea.
Wow.
I wouldn't even begin to know why Georgia is higher than Florida, which is right next to it.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that is the reality. When it comes to states that have, really low fraud percentages, of course we have 300,000 units, and that doesn't mean that that distribution is exactly even. About a third of our portfolio is in California. So, there are some states that, we'll get 100 applicants or 70. And of course, that has a much lower statistical significance than, a state with, 50,000 units, if you will.
Wow. No, Dario, this one is awesome.
Hey, thanks a lot.
I heard a lot about fraud, things that I just did not know.
Yeah.
So
it's best not to talk about fraud in the morning. It's a little disheartening. In the afternoon, I think we scheduled this at the right time.
Time. So kind of thinking about property management as a whole, what's one thing that if you could solve in property management, I kind of just wave a magic wand and solve it, what would that be? Especially from you being a property manager yourself.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the application process just in general for residents is challenging. And, if I would wave my magic wand, there would be an end-to-end, leasing solution, that really worked for applicants when they're standing in the unit, when they're making that emotional connection to the space, like I was mentioning before, in a way that can pull their financial details, ensure that it's authentic, pull their credit, their criminal history, sort of all of that information, pull it together and then score it based on the property manager's acceptance criteria based on that unit, and could really give leasing teams this, live time. Yes, this person is, this person is, approved, or they're conditionally approved because you need X, Y, Z, and you can really make that transaction happen on the spot. Because we all know, when you go to a car dealership and you're interested in the car, they bring you into the room and they wait until that deal is closed because they don't want you to leave. And I think, with the amount of competition that, property owners and managers have, when you've got someone who's interested and who's qualified, like,
so just
keep them. Yeah.
It's like instant sales, which is what was almost everywhere else.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Oh, no. Thank you so much for being on.
Hey, my pleasure.
Really
appreciate it, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'll do a fist bump.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. The world.
No, it's like perfect.